Welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland preview show. It was a disappointing weekend for Sunderland as a poor first half display meant we went down 2-1 to Swansea in South Wales. However, Tony Mowbray and the lads have a huge opportunity to rectify that this weekend when we face about 1 million former Sunderland players when we play Wigan Athletic at home this weekend. Regular listeners will remember today's Wigan guest very well, but if you are a new listener, I will reintroduce him for those of you new to the show. It's returning guest and co-host of Wigan podcast Progress with Unity, Adam Pendlebury. Adam, how are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah. I think I was your lucky omen last year, wasn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Every time you spoke to me, you won the next game. It happened to be against Wigan. So obviously, I'm certainly hoping that's going to change this weekend. But I'm sure you'd be very happy with that continuity.
There was definitely a method of a madness, Adam. I'm not going to lie. There's tons of things to get through, as there always has been recently over the past few years with Wigan and Sunderland. But we'll start straight from the top. I actually have recorded after the midweek game this week. We normally record beforehand, but you managed to hold like a little mini run of defeats last night with a win over local rivals Blackburn Rovers, thanks to a Nathan Broadhead goal, of course. How was the performance?
I thought we played very well. I thought I would say it was certainly our best home performance of the season. I mean, obviously, it was our first home win, but it was a deserved win. I thought we were pretty solid at the back. We kept Diaz quiet pretty much throughout the game. The midfield had a lot more bite in it. It had a lot more energy in it. It passed the ball a lot quicker. And I think out wide with the likes of sort of Broadhead and McLean. Will Keane played really well in his link-up play, and White just gave a typical White performance for Wigan. Sure, we'll talk about him in some detail later, but yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the stats, I think Blackburn's expected goals was something ridiculous like 0.2 and Wigan's was 1.6. I know it's not all about that, but that's a big difference in a game, really, and it suited us as well because Blackburn had 65% possession. I think we had something similar on Cardiff and the week before, and to be honest, never looked like getting anything from that game. So it looks like we're a side that benefits from having less possession. Yeah, hopefully keep the consistency and try and just give that solidity, because we will have a bad spell, I'm sure, in the season. But if we can get the points in the bank early doors, then it takes a lot of pressure off.
That's now obviously 13 games, so the win means technically, at the time of speaking, you're the best performing promoted team from League One last season with 19 points. The season as a whole, how's it kind of gone so far after 13 games? Because that's a decent amount of games to make a relative judgment.
Once you get to the sort of 12 game points, you're more or less sort of a quarter of the way through the season, so it's a good time to assess. Yeah, we picked up points where I didn't expect us to. I think we've been very good away from home. I think it suits us in terms of style. And given the fact there were quite a lot of Wigan fans worried about our lack of activity in the transfer market, I think on a number of occasions this year we've played a side that pretty much featured last season in League One. So despite the likes of Broadhead and Fletcher signing, they were often bench players. Noembi from Blackburn as well. And we went with the same 11 on a number of occasions that basically did the job last year. So I wasn't overly concerned because I like continuity. I've seen it before when a club gets promoted and they sign too many new players, and I think it can cause problems. So I think, despite some negativity at the start of the season, I think we're pretty much where I would not necessarily have expected us to be, but I did expect us to pick up some points early on. And I think we've just got a couple of bonus points. I mean, for example, getting a draw at Norwich, I think was something that I wouldn't have thought we could get anywhere near. And even looking at games like the Birmingham game, down to 10 men after 10 minutes, and seeing that game out 1-0, and Birmingham haven't been setting the world on fire, but to play again, to play with 10 men for so long was another great performance. And then, albeit Rotherham were a League One side last year, they've been doing really well at home, and that was probably our best performance away from home all season, and we won that quite comfortably 2-0. So I'm very, very happy with where we are at the moment. I'm not getting carried away, but I'm very, very happy, especially now we've got that first home win on the board.
Obviously, as we kind of touched on at the beginning of the podcast, there's 1,001 players that have played for both Wigan and Sunderland that are probably going to be there or thereabouts in the lineup. I think it's 5 in total. I'd like to think I speak for everyone when I say it's great to see Charlie White back, and not only on a football field, but scoring goals, as long as it's not on, obviously, Saturday. But last time we spoke, White wasn't really part of Wigan's squad at all because of the really frightening situation he had, which we all know about and was well documented. This season, he's came back into the squad. He scored last week, I think it was. He's played 8 games. Firstly, how good is it to see him back as a Wigan fan after going through, obviously, what he has done? And second of all, how sharp is he actually looking in terms of getting back to his best?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because, obviously the first worry was with his short term was with his health. I mean, that was the main thing, that he was just okay. Then, you get to the point where you start thinking, can he return to football? And you've seen, obviously, a number of other issues with other players. You've got Daley Blind, and you've got obviously Ericsson as well. I know they've got slight differences, but there's certainly some commonalities there. So I don't think anyone really expected him to get back last season. He played early on in pre-season, and then I think he had a setback. The setback wasn't anything major, but he didn't really hit the ground running. So quite a lot of those appearances have been as substitutes, really. So I think he came back on the pitch for the first time. I think it was at Birmingham away from home. We got him back on the pitch. And then obviously the next step was his first start. And then obviously on Saturday, his first goal. Now he's played 3 in a row. He's not completed matches, but clearly he's getting game time now. He's looking sharper. He's very different from the player that we kind of discussed before the first match of last season, because I think we talked about essentially McGeady providing all his chances and White scored the goals. Whereas actually, I thought of him certainly early last season as someone who could score goals, but the strength of his game was, for me, his link-up play. I was really impressed with how he held the ball up, how he brought the players in. If you see the goal at Birmingham, I mean, the intricate pass that he put through to Broadhead was superb. So I think he's got that bit sharper now. I don't expect him to be anything like a sort of 15 to 20 goal per season. I think he is quite key to our team. We have got a bit of backup in Josh McGuinness, who has played really well, when he's called upon. But I think Charlie's got more to his general game. Whether it's working with, James Beattie seems to have improved all our forward players over the course of the last sort of 12 months. So, working with him maybe has improved him in some ways. Then maybe the likes of Lee Johnson wanted him as a more sort of one-dimensional player. But end of the day, if he's scoring 30 goals for you, maybe you don't you don't want him to be doing everything else for you. I think naturally we're going to lose a lot of the goals he scored at Sunderland. But hopefully, if he does play on Saturday, you'll see a more complete player, I think, than the player that sort of left last season.
Obviously, I feel like I'm writing the script here a little bit, if I'm completely honest, but it was well documented that we were pretty much wanting to bring Nathan Broadhead back to Sunderland this year. I certainly wanted him back, and he did a very, very good job for us. I think 10 in 20. Whatever you believe the reason to be, that didn't materialise, and obviously he ended up at Wigan. He hasn't been a starter up until recently, but like I said, he did a great job at Sunderland, and he got the winner for you last night against Blackburn in a derby game. From what you've seen of Nathan so far, how impressive has he been in the opening quarter of the season, and what kind of position is he playing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of talent, definitely. You can see that a couple of times last night. You know, he's picked up the ball wide and he's beat a couple of players and got a shot in. I think he's only started maybe 3 games. I mean, I've seen him more as an impact player in a sense. So when he's come on, he's kind of changed the game. Obviously scored the winner at Birmingham, but has generally looked good in the sense of he runs at he's not fond of running at defenders, and later on in the game when they're tired, it's a good time to do it. But I mean, I'm sure he would have been expecting to start more games. They alluded to it last night on Sky. I know Robert Page was there watching, you know, because of obviously there's a World Cup coming on. So, and he had a fantastic record, you know, at Sunderland in terms of his goal ratio, pretty much 1 in 2, I think, around about. He doesn't see. I don't see him as that type of player, but again, it might be the style of player that Wigan are playing, in a sense, in a similar way to the Charlie White. He's played wider. He kind of does get it. He is happy to come inside and get the shots in, but he's also seems quite happy to go wide and get crosses in as well. So I like him. I think most of the fan base like him, but we've seen the best of him as a substitute, which I don't think will be enough to get him into a World Cup squad, being a substitute at Wigan. So on the basis, it was quite funny actually. It did look last night like he was coming off just before he scored the goal. And then he came off anyway 10 minutes afterwards. So I don't know what his completion rate was at Sunderland in terms of games, whether he tended to play a full 90 or not. So he was one of those that would be, say, withdrawn at 70. I'm presuming he wasn't a substitute at Sunderland, given the goals he scored.
He was to and fro, really. I think with Nathan, probably his main problem with Sunderland was if he got an injury, it kept him out for weeks. So when he came back, he would then start coming off the bench for the first 3 games, and then he would start, and then he would get injured, which is one of the reasons some Sunderland fans weren't 100% sure he would be worth the risk. But his goals to game ratio, for me, you couldn't argue with him when he was on the pitch. Last season, especially, we looked a better side, but then he got injured for the playoff run and barely played in the playoff spot, 10 minutes here or there. So predominantly a substitute, but probably more due down to fitness issues than anything else.
But he's clearly got quality, and speaking to some Everton fans, they seem to say that he's got a future in the game, at the top level. So I'd like to think that we will get more out of him, albeit I think we've got enough out of him so far. I haven't got any problems with him, and I can see why Sunderland wanted him back.
Regarding, obviously, Nathan himself, I'm going to attest, obviously, many people don't have any reason why he decided the move to Wigan was a better option than obviously coming to Sunderland. Or I think all that's pretty certain is that it was very late that he made that decision. A lot of the comments afterwards between Sunderland fans were made that it's difficult to convince a striker to come in and play third choice. And at the time that he supposedly changed his mind, Ellis Sims had scored 2, was a new signing coming from Everton, and Ross Stewart, as he does, scored again. Lo and behold, obviously our 2 strikers are currently injured. One of them longer term, and Nathan, if he joined Sunderland, would have probably been starting for the past few weeks and furthermore. There was a lot made about it, but what I've always found very weird about the theory that he allegedly didn't want to come and play third choice was that it's really hard to keep someone who's not going to be guaranteed to start. And then I look at Wigan's team and I see Charlie Wyke, Josh McGuinness, Will Keane, Ashley Fletcher, and Callum Lang all to call on as forward options. So the theory for me never really held weight that he wasn't happy to be third choice. But Wigan have 5 strikers. How do you keep them all happy at the same time?
Yeah, there's another there you haven't thrown in who I think his best position is playing on the wide left is James McLean as well, who is a forward player. I think last year he got 9 goals. So yeah, I mean that theory would be odd given the amount of strikers that we have. There's also I guess you'd say throwing young Asgard as well, who's played games wide. I mean, first of all, there are 3 positions, I guess, in the forward line. Whatever you want. I mean, in older money, they were 4. We were talking 4-3-3, weren't we? Where you had your back 4, you kind of 2 holding midfielders. You then sort of link player. Now that link player is Will Keane. Now he pretty much plays every game. He plays in the kind of advanced midfield role. So I guess he isn't necessarily a direct competitor in the striker role. Albeit he was of course the top scorer last season, so it does look odd, but he was the deepest of the forwards really. Lange, well, he's injured at the moment. It doesn't look like he'll play on Saturday, and again, Lange's improved even this season. I think he's realised that there's certain moves that are just too predictable at Championship level. So he's developing that. I think the Wyke and McGuinness really at the moment is the battle. But as I said, I think Wyke starts, all things being equal, but we've got to manage him carefully. I mean, obviously, clearly he's had serious health issues, so it would be madness not to have a similar player in the team, and they are getting game time. And James McLean has been playing most of this season at left back, so he's kind of been taken out of the attacking equation. So there is room for Nathan Broadhead in that team. But I mean, presumably there would have been room at Sunderland as well, because if he's playing well enough, he scores a couple of goals, gets left out. I mean, you don't know, do you? I mean, presumably last year, Sunderland maybe were his main interest. They're a big club. Maybe he didn't have any clubs in the Northwest that were interested, because you wonder whether locations I mean, it clearly didn't affect him, did it? Whether he moved up on a short-term basis at Sunderland, it clearly didn't affect his form. So it did seem an odd one, and especially with it being a loan arrangement. Sometimes if it's a signing, everyone throws out the wages, don't they? But usually, I know clubs come to arrangements, but usually there's not that much difference in the loan market. So I don't know. I don't know what you've lost for whether it's. I don't think we've necessarily took the full gain yet of what you might have lost, if you see what I mean, because I haven't seen enough of him yet. And I mean, if that was the reason, it's not a great attitude, because really what you should be doing is saying, I'm good enough and I'm going to get myself into that team. And that basically is what he has to do at Wigan at the moment. So I wouldn't subscribe to that theory. I think it doesn't seem right, given, like you said, the number of forward players at Wigan.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Interesting theory. I think he would have been more than happy. I think there's probably more to it of that. We will never know. We've discussed Charlie and Nathan at length. Obviously, we could go on to Max Power, we could go on to James McLean, but it would go on all day. outside of obviously Charlie and Nathan, who we spoke about, which Wigan players are the ones that are in particularly good form heading into Saturday that maybe we wouldn't know of or should be aware of?
Well, I mean, Maxi as usual, he's just playing like he's Maxi role. Wigan fans love him, always have done. Just does what he does. He plays all the games, and then we rotate between Naylor and Shinnie in that other role. They've both been competent. I mean, personally, I don't think that they're okay. They're okay championship players side in championship teams that are probably like Wigan that would be happy to sort of finish in the mid-table. I don't think there are two types of holding midfielders that would necessarily, get you any further. But same with Power. For me, Power, you wouldn't get any of the big 3, 4, 5 teams who are interested in him. But for Wigan, he does a great job. But I think Wigan's best player, and if he keeps it consistent this season, and Wigan, you never know. We could finish in a playoff. We've had Luton, we've had Huddersfield, we've had Barnsley in recent years, and then you never know. But if Wigan don't advance, you might get a few lower Premier League clubs looking at Jack Watmore at the back, who I think is a superb player. I think he reads the game really well. He passes it well. He just always seems to where you get that striker who always seems to be in the right position. It always falls. It's like Haaland at City at the moment. It just always falls to him. So with Watmore, he generally seems to be in the right position at the right time. It sort of smells the danger. I like the fact that he nips in as well. If you've got that big strike who once he gets hold of the ball, he's hard to get it off. He's perfectly happy to sort of nip in and try and nick the ball. I think it helps Wigan when we play in a 3 because it gives Watmore a bit more license to do that. Because obviously, not that he misses it very often, but if he does miss it, you then 2-on-1. Whereas if we play the 3 centre backs, we've got that little bit extra there. It's difficult to say really because we're gonna, for me, are very much a team, an entity with a really good manager and really good coaches. So it's hard to when we have a stinker, it's hard to pick a man of the match because they usually all are stinkers. But when we play well, we always do a poll on the man of the matches, and like last night, I think Watmore was the clear man of the match. Sky gave him the man of the match. But that said, next to him we've got Kerr, who was playing right-sided centre back. And he reminded me, I don't know if you remember the season when Sheffield United got promoted, where the right and left-hand sided centre-backs seemed to turn into wing-backs at times and bomb up the field and, create attacks. And he was doing that on that side, and to a lesser extent on the other side, Curtis Tilt on the left side. So it's hard to pick. I think Watmore is the one who you could see moving up. I think Lang again is another potential. Tello Asgard, lots of quality about him, likely to start on the bench. Not quite there yet, but I'd love him to be playing up front with a Haaland because he's a Scouser, but he plays for Norway. So I'd love to see that one there. Whether Asgard can play the passes De Bruyne does to him is another matter. But it's a pity Lange's not playing, although you did see him last season, and I don't think he was at his best, but I think he's improved. But yeah, the one for me is Watmore, and I feel really bad now about picking the defender out because after losing last year 3-0, 2-0, 2-1, I hope it's not his. I hope he doesn't throw in the stinker where he's 4 out of 10 and everyone else is 5 out of 10. I hope we see a good performance. I think we will go because we are away from home and we've won the game. we won the game last night, Tuesday, sorry. I think we'll keep the same formation, really. There might be the odd change, but I think we'll go for the kind of wing backs, three centre backs, which will mean McLean can push a little bit further forward.
Looking at obviously last season's games, which you touched on there was one player that you really struggled against, and a lot of people did. You weren't special in that way, and that was Ross Stewart. But as we know, he's injured, and he'll definitely not be playing on Saturday. Based on what you've seen of Sunderland so far and what you remember from last season, who are the players that concern you going into the game? Like, where are Wigan the weakest, and where can we damage it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the odd one for me is, and obviously I don't watch him on a regular basis, but I think Patrick Roberts now has signed. Is he permanent signing now? When he first came through, you thought he was going to be a top player, regular Premier League player, but it's he's someone who I've seen bits of, certainly that are quite like the guy Clark as well. I think is a decent player. I did watch one of your games, and there was some new players that came in that I didn't really know who had come in. A couple of them look decent. There's the one that I did know, which I didn't know you'd signed him, was the guy from United. I don't know. I'm presuming he's on loan, because was he not about a £35 million signing or something ridiculous?
Diallo, yeah, he was.
Yeah, I didn't think after the what we saw on the documentary that you'd be paying like £35 million for a player. But and then there were a couple of younger players that when I've watched some of the highlights, they look younger players from abroad. I think one of them's from, maybe did he come in from Costa Rica, possibly somewhere like that? I think.
Jewison Benete, yes.
Yeah. But as I said, there seems to have been not a revolution, but I think Sunderland maybe have signed a few more than Wigan have. I don't really like to say that there's a true weakness. I mean, I would say that the home games where we've got beaten, I would say we've been dominating in midfield. We've been dominated in midfield. So that's in, and occasionally on the right-hand side, on our right-hand side as well. I think if Callum Lang's not playing, the player playing on the right, whether it be a Broadhead, for example, hasn't put the work in. I'm not saying not put the work in, but maybe doesn't have the positional sense to work back. So if your left-hand side is having a good day and all your midfielders are playing well, they're probably the areas where we could be exploited. But as I said, I thought our midfield was excellent the other night, and I couldn't criticise our right back or right hand side at all, really. So it's hard to say we've got an absolute weakness. But on the other hand, I don't think we've got any areas where I would say we're exceptional either, really. And I'm very happy to just say that I just think we're a very good team, and we have a very good manager who is prepared to work really hard, do his research and improve, and he's got a good coaches in Rob Kelly and James Beattie, who really help him out in that sense.
Last but not least, as always, I've got all of them wrong again, but we've got about a minute left here, so I'll go for it. Prediction time, I will go short, sharp, and sweet. 1-0 Sunderland, but not a confident one. Yeah. What are you going with, Adam?
Yeah, I'm going with a repeat of my favourite game, the 2-1 win. If you remember the game there, and did Steve Bruce back in however many years ago that was, but so 2-1 win for Wigan Athletic is my prediction.
Franco De Santo with the winner. But Adam, thanks always for joining me, mate. I appreciate it. Pleased to see you doing well, and obviously keep in touch for the rest of the year, mate.